We're back. My name is Alex. I'm an engineering manager here at Figma. But most importantly, I'm the host of the stage for the final session of today. How wild is that? We're almost done. Up next, I have the pleasure of introducing Gabby and Lisa from Slack. They're here to talk a little bit about how they help prepare V1 documentation for their brand guidelines at Slack. Theirs is a story of deep collaboration between copywriter and designer that I'm super stoked for. So without further ado, please welcome to the stage Gabby and Lisa.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our session. Whether you know us or you've never met us or you're our dads on live stream, thank you for the free ticket. We are so glad that you're here. We're quite excited to be on this stage. I'm Lisa Plachy. I'm a senior copywriter at Slack.
And I'm Gabby. I'm a senior designer. So we're here to share our stories on how we build Slack's Brand Center, the home of our brand guidelines. And we're sharing this project because it had every lesson that we could imagine on tackling an ambiguous, messy project, full of false starts, pivots, and ultimately some progress.
A little progress.
And it tested both Lisa and I in every possible way, both as contributors and as project leads. I'd say especially as project leads. So we're here to share that journey, to help you make a bit more sense of work in progress work, lead, and navigate your way through it. We have 5 short stories for you, each one with its own plot and takeaway. So if we're ready, we'll dive into our first one, which we called The Limits of Imitation. So what you see on screen is how our brand guidelines used to exist. They existed in this 50-page PDF that walked you through very high-level information on our brand. But as our brand grew, this format became quite limiting. You can see by the depth of information we could get to on each page. So it worked great as a fast overview of our brand, but it started to fall short when somebody truly needed to understand how to execute creative work for our brand. So let's dig a little deeper. Here's our core colors page. It has all the values you could need, but it only has 2 short paragraphs on how to use them. So I'm not even going to question that. It is not enough information. It just scratches the surface. And sure, our team knows exactly how to use every single part of our system. But what happens when you onboard a new team member? What happens when you work with an agency? When someone outside your team decides they want to create something on their own?
That never happens.
Never. Or when an agency doesn't work directly with your team. Unfortunately, we can't oversee everything the light touches, so our tools really need to work hard for us. So going back to that PDF, you can see how that starts breaking. We were not able to just point at this one resource and expect anyone to understand and apply every part of it. So we also had many, many additional resources to support it. But that came with its limitations too. They lived in different places, they were created in different formats, they were owned by different people, and that created an access problem. The main PDF, no problem. It's lived on slack.com. Anybody could go and get it. But our additional ones, they needed to be individually sourced and shared. And that also came with the assumption that people would know to ask for them, that they know these even existed, or that our team was always directly involved to be able to share these. So it worked, until it didn't, because our brand was quickly growing, and the process just became tedious and unsustainable. And it wasn't just the format or where the resources lived. Our PDF had even more limitations. Although we tried to keep this PDF up to date as much as we could, that wouldn't change how people usually interact with a PDF. It feels like a finite format. You download it. So people would download it and go on their way. So let's say our website had version 7.8. Well, in the past, somebody downloaded version 5.6. So we could never tell if that user ever came back to download the right guidelines. And so this created a version control problem. So what now? Our team had a new goal: to leave the 50-page PDF behind, as well as all its unlimited supporting documents, and create a one-stop hub, a place where anyone could get a way better understanding of our brand, and the people that needed a little extra, the resources that they needed to get their job done, all in one place and in a format that invited you to come back. Fast forward time, conversations, creative briefs, approvals. It was time to start.
So easy, we'll just create an online site for our brand guidelines. And it was going to be easy because other people have already done this. We started by looking at other brands and their documentation sites and compiling research. We opened up our Figma file, got our research page, and we gathered a bunch of inspiration. However, we weren't finding what we were looking for. And it wasn't because there weren't amazing brand guidelines out there, but it became apparent we were looking for maybe something that didn't quite exist. And why is that? Well, we had started to form a really specific wish list for ourselves.
We're kind of picky.
Yeah, we are. So the first thing that we wanted was not really that picky. We wanted it to be up to date and updatable, something that we could change without having to go into InDesign and upload a new PDF to slack.com. And we wanted this to be updatable by other people on our team, not just Gabby or whoever was owning the PDF at the time. We also wanted to bring everything together all in one place, including our resources. And this is actually where our inspiration fell short. Again, there are some great guidelines out there, but some of them are so much documentation and no resources, or they have both, but the experience of trying to access them or navigate your way through it wasn't really that intuitive. And this was important because we had a goal for this to be made for much different types of audiences than most brand guidelines. Most brand guidelines are made for people like Gabby and I, who really care about every single nitty-gritty detail about every little thing. And that's important, and we can host that on our site, but we have people who are just employees who want to know the rules or our most recent tagline. We have agencies who just need to get a primer on our brand before they can dive in. And so we weren't finding something that captured an experience that would work for all of them. We also wanted most of our brand guidelines to be public, so it would be just as easy to access them as our PDF, right? Go to this site, get most of what you need. But we got to protect our brand assets. We can't have everyone downloading our Slack circular font. All of this added up to something that was becoming really clear as well, and that's that we wanted this site to feel like us. We wanted it to be like Slack. As our brand guidelines, this was going to be one of the best expressions of our brand. If you saw Ethan Eisman's talk yesterday, our SVP of design, you'll know that at Slack, at least on the product side, we really value the idea of being good hosts, and that's what we wanted to do in our brand guidelines. Give people what they needed, but also make it feel inviting and welcoming and easy to use. And that's why we couldn't find something that hit all the points, and we were picky too. So this is when things really began, because we realized we were going to have to carve our own path. We had plenty of inspiration, but nothing that fit exactly what we needed, not the real blueprint that we were looking for. We knew this was going to make it more complex, but we were pretty excited. And that's something to remember. So many of our projects start with mood boarding, competitive analysis, inspiration pulling. That stuff is really, really useful. But the real creative opportunity is when you get to create something all your own. So here we were, creating something all our own, beginning again for the next time. So okay, now we're going to really, really start the project. And now that we have no blueprint, no site that we can copy, where do we start? We figured we'd start with the home page. This was the entry point into our site, and we saw this as helping us set the foundation for the rest of the experience that we wanted to build. So this is the beginning of the project. We're all very motivated and excited. We're fresh to it, and we really want to get this right. We want this homepage to be really incredible. So we dedicated all of our resources to it, which meant that we had 3 designers and a writer all working on the same thing, make us a homepage.
And it was a model our team had done before. We felt comfortable with this.
And we certainly got homepages. A dozen, 100. We had so many homepages. And the more iterations that we had, the less progress that we were actually making. We were further from really landing on what we needed. We had so many ideas, but we didn't have direction. And every round of review just opened up more possibilities. Admittedly, these possibilities were coming from our own team, who in the process of everyone go make a homepage is also working on things like other pages in the site and the footer and components and things that are sort of homepage adjacent. So we all just naturally started gravitating towards making other things. We're creative people. This is what happens.
And we went a little rogue.
Yeah, we did. We did. But it became apparent that maybe this wasn't such a bad thing. If we wanted to make progress, maybe we should embrace this. So with the full sign-off of our design manager, who was initially helping us oversee all this, we decided to delegate. That meant one designer seeing the homepage through, owning that vision, taking all the iterations and figuring out what was most successful. We had another designer who had extensive experience working on Slack.com and even our internal web design system. They were owning components and systematic things across all the different pages. I was focusing on content hierarchies so that we could have a navigation to make your way through the site. And Gabby really honed in on the user journey so that as we were making creative decisions, they were informed by what people actually needed.
So, at first we believed, yes, let's give everyone the same assignment. It will give us more ideas. This would lead to a better homepage. That's not false, but it did prevent us from making more significant progress. It halted our progress. Instead of focusing on narrowing down and refining, we were constantly distracted by the endless possibilities. The idea that there might just be a better one just around the corner. And thankfully, we did let go a bit. We leaned in our interests, and perhaps subconsciously, trying to make up for that progress we weren't feeling. But what became more interesting for both Lisa and I was the opportunity to explore our roles. We had always been designated as copy and design leads on the project. But we were not sure exactly what that meant in this context. We had so much support from our team that it wasn't quite clear what gaps we could fill. So we asked ourselves what we wanted.
What did we want, Gabby?
Well, we wanted to be accountable for more than design and words on the project. We wanted to lead our team through collaboration between our disciplines. We wanted to be better partners to our managers and ops. We wanted to help define the structure of the project. We wanted to be challenged, and we were really passionate about this, and we saw it as a great opportunity for growth. So with this, our day-to-day roles started changing. We were now taking on a few planning responsibilities. We were leading kickoffs and crits and reviews, which also meant we were taking a bigger communication role because we needed to keep alignment and transparency between our team and our managers throughout the whole process. So, from the very beginning, we didn't really know how this project would take shape. Or we did, and that went out the window really fast. But we started finding definition by letting a few things go. and by not holding on to a process just out of familiarity. Having this moment to reflect led Lisa and I to explore our leadership skills, or rather form them, and it took us to a place where we could carve the kind of impact and value we wanted to bring. So that's our invitation here. Carve out time to explore whatever makes you the most curious on your work, because it can lead you to new opportunities and keep yourself and your team invested on the work. Of course, it's not so easy. Now the real work begins, which is why finding those new challenges through areas that truly pique your interest will make the journey to take much easier. So let's take a look at that on what we like to call a humbling undertaking.
Emphasis on humbling.
We had a plan, or so we thought. We were going to make this one-stop hub with a page for every part of our brand system. Think color, logo, illustration, so on. And it would involve auditing what already existed, collaborating and creating what didn't, and getting ready for development. We also decided to tackle this project in sprints, and borrowing from a process our team had done before to create our web design system. We leaned on ops to figure out our bandwidth, our timelines, our contributors, and we had a setup. Each sprint consisted of 2 teams creating 2 pages in 2 weeks. Simple. And we truly thought at this point we had everything set up for success. By now we had our timeline. We had already done our audit. We had a component library to pull from, check-in schedules, additional designers for content support. But it did not take long for things to start unraveling.
2 weeks seemed like the perfect amount of time for these pages, and for a few pages, that worked for sure. However, as soon as we started getting into more of those extensive pages or pages that had no pre-existing documentation, we naturally started to extend those sprints.
And we were also competing against high-priority projects all the time. It sometimes felt like this came second or third, and that was hard, but it also made sense. Our roadmap just had higher priority projects, and the majority of people on this project happened to be sourced for all of those. So at some point, for like a month, I was the only one left to work on this. And although I could technically keep working on it, we had set up these sprints that worked in pairs, and I had no partner.
We abandoned you. I'm so sorry.
You did, but it's okay. So this halted our sprints until the rest of the team was able to come back.
When we all were working together at the same time, Gabby and I had been paired up as a copy design partner, and that made a lot of sense. We have a lot of experience working together. We've even worked on our brand guidelines in its past life as a PDF. We had this whole system for making progress on pages. We'd come together, we'd have these meaty, philosophical, long conversations, mess around in Figma, and we would break up when we knew very specifically what we could work on our own. This was working really great for us, but we realized well into the project that we had never shared this model for working. And this was significant because we had paired other people that did not have the same amount of experience working together, in some cases had never worked together before, and had not been on our brand as long. And so we had assumed they had a similar level of comfort working together, and really we kind of left them in the dark. So this, and everything that was happening, all this unraveling, we had to stop and pause and reflect. Sometimes we had to look at what was happening. Sometimes we had to look inward on ourselves and our egos and figure out this as it was going on. But it didn't all happen in a week, and we didn't fix it in a week. In fact, this was happening throughout the entire course of the progress, or the project, and we had to course correct as it was happening, and we truly did not always know what we were doing. So we tried a bunch of things.
Yes, we did. So going back to that month where I couldn't work on a sprint, I was still sourced for this. I had to create progress somehow. So I thought of something different, something new. We were going to launch at some point. We were far from it at this point, but it would happen, so I figured I could work on the launch plan. So I dove right into that, even though I've not done this before. And so in the process, I jumped between my research, ideas, other launches that our own team had put together in the past. And once I exhausted everything I could do on my own, I pulled in our ops team to help refine and get us to a plan that once the team could come back, we had something ready.
At the suggestion of another designer, who we are so thankful spoke up, it was time for Gabby and I to break up. Obviously, not too much, but it meant that we could pair with other people and share what we knew. It meant getting outside of our comfort level with each other and doing exactly what we wanted to do, which was lead the project instead of being this exclusive pair.
And after figuring out partnerships, we had to hit reset on how and when we communicated, making our communications much more intentional, useful, and anticipating potential setbacks. So we increased our number of check-ins. We communicated goals and expectations for those. We made it clear who and what depended on these milestones. This helped keep the team on the same page and gave an opportunity to ask questions and bring up blockers. There is so much that we wish we would have known. But all the pivots we went through really sparked reflection and helped us navigate through this project, how we wanted to lead our team through this. We had a lot of experience leading other work. Nothing like this, nothing quite at this scale. So naturally, we learned a lot. We realized, perhaps a bit too late, that we could have been asking our team and ourselves questions to help them be successful. Questions like, what is their working style? How do they communicate progress? What do they keep to themselves? What support do they need to be successful? And what are their personal goals for the project? These answers can help you get to know your team in the context of a specific project. And it's important that you know these answers, because even if you think you know your team, these answers can change depending on the type of project and even the moment in time. So all of this revealed that responsibility and autonomy, which was exactly what we wanted, can be both empowering and intimidating all at the same time. So much of this was new to both of us, and we knew we didn't have all the answers.
We didn't have any answers, actually, and this is so cheesy, but I've warned you, we had each other, and that's how we got through this project. We had what felt like the perfect process in place. We had that nice, neat, and tidy timeline. We had resources. We had support. But the process is what changed the most along the way. It was the most flexible thing. What was not flexible is the trust that we had at many different layers within our team. On one layer, Gabby and I had a fundamental trust in each other. Maybe to a fault, admittedly, but enough that we never doubted each other and we believed in each other and thought we could figure this out. We always had the support to lean on each other, even when we didn't know what we were doing.
And we had our managers who trusted us and gave us the space to figure this out on our own, while also not letting us fail. Thank you.
And what was so incredible is that throughout this project, everyone on this slide never left the project. They stuck with us, even when we made it kind of difficult to work with us, even as we were making these mistakes and figuring it out. They were supportive, they were patient, they were kind. And that's a reminder for you all that no process, no system, no timeline, no tool can serve you if your team does not fundamentally believe in each other. So after all that emotional stuff, we did have some happy endings in the project. We entered what felt like the movie montage phase where, like everything is falling into place and everyone's collaborating and there's really inspiring music, and we did find our stride. So much of that started with how we communicated in a way that was actually helpful to each other. This seems like super obvious advice, but we had to figure out what this meant in the context of our project. So we improved our communication by encouraging a couple of different things. 1, raise blockers and raise them early, because all of us are depending on each other and need to know what we're working on. 2, make it really clear that we are here as a team, so that if you have a blocker, if you have an obstacle, if you have a challenge, we all want to and can work on it together, work through it together. We also encouraged feedback on the process. The designer raising that, hey, the Gabby and Lisa show has got to go, was really hard to hear, but really helpful, and it helped us move past. And then finally, I think what really improved communication was encouraging designers and copywriters to come together. Instead of saying, hey, just go make a page, the first thing we did was encourage them to make a working plan. How do you communicate? How do you want to vibe with each other? How are you going to make progress, again, together? Really improving our communication also helped us strengthen the partnership between design and copy, and some really interesting things started to happen as a result. Because we had so much opportunity to talk to each other now and work together, we really started to listen and learn from each other. And through that, we gained a much better understanding and respect for each other's craft. What that meant is that as a copywriter, I could actually start to anticipate what my design partner needed, and vice versa. There was just so much of a clearer understanding of what each other did and what our strengths were. Obviously, it made the work better and stronger. Hopefully you all have experienced that magic, but what was more fulfilling and gratifying is how it brought our team so much closer to each other, and it made it really fun to geek out on the brand together.
It was so fun. I cannot count the hours that we talked about every part of our brand. Loved it. Let's keep doing that. So as things kept falling into place, we were able to make space for personal growth. It was important for us to keep our team motivated, to push the project forward, and to find opportunities for them to stretch their impact and their role in a way that also aligned to their own goals. There's a few ways you can do this. Ask your team what they're interested in. It's part of getting to know them, but also the simplest way to find opportunities for others. You can also find gaps on the project yourself and propose those back to your team. It shows them that you see their potential, and it opens them up to opportunities they might have not considered for themselves in the past. And celebrate the wins, big and small. Recognizing accomplishment can help us find purpose and focus. So, after a lot of trial and error, we established a rhythm so we could start finalizing our pages and getting them developed so we could actually, eventually, launch our site. It's real. You can visit it if you like.
Woo!
So once we figured out what our teams needed to be successful, the project naturally went a lot smoother. It took a lot of awareness of ourselves and our team, a lot of effort, but we learned that's what good leaders do. They're always finding ways to provide support, create opportunities, and lift their team up. And this is how we ended up with something that we're proud of.
So we launched. Story's over, but of course it's not. Our sequel was, we moved on from this 50-page PDF that everyone was really familiar with, and now we have this completely new tool. It's new to us, it's new to our employees, it's new to our agency partners, and so of course it's going to come with its own trials and tribulations. We always knew from the get-go that this would be the kind of project that was never finished. That was kind of built into this project, is the fact that we wanted to change it. So to combat this or deal with this, we envisioned it in phases. Phase 1 was the launch, our MVP, if you want to put it in product terms. get this thing out the door so that people can access resources and guidelines and we can get away from this tedious process. After that, we originally planned to jump into phase 2. And I mean jump because that is 2 days after we launched. We were going to do it. Phase 2 was going to be dedicated to new pages, adding motion, dreaming big. What else was phase 2 going to be about?
Well, because phase 1 was about getting to launch, to create access. Phase 2 was about refining and rethinking the experience so it could be easier and simpler, but also having the space to explore that part of our brand that we love and that makes all of our products feel more like us.
So, phase 1, we launched, we did it. Despite our best efforts to set it up for success, we had a full communications plan. We had a Slack help channel. We had a list of answers to frequently asked questions that people hadn't even asked yet. As is the central theme of this talk, things started to unravel a little bit. Those resources that we set up to be so accessible, some of them were locked because they had to be. And people started requesting them. And not just requesting them because they needed them. A lot of people who did not need them seemed to really want them.
They really did not need them.
And it really changed our understanding of how people were going to use the site, and even like who was using the site. And I mean, on the positive side, it revealed that there was a real demand for this resource. We had one more surprise in the mix. And that was when we learned we were going to be on this stage, which I think we were hoping for, but maybe not quite prepared for. And what that meant is that if you all took a photo of that URL, you're all going to go visit it. And so we really have to make sure that it is up to snuff, that we have our things figured out. So we had to be much more intentional about our next steps. Rather than let's jump right into phase 2, we entered, and we kind of maybe still are.
We're like at the door of phase 2.
Okay, so we entered a phase 1.5-ish, and we're in this middle in-between ground of phases. And this is our chance to fix what isn't working, and ideally build a stronger foundation so that when we do go through that door, we're really ready.
So, as you can tell, we're now well-versed on things not going according to plan. So as we stepped into this phase 1.5-ish, we took a moment to pause and to look at our progress and to use this to inform the next steps, because we needed to do some course correcting and we needed some new change. So we went back to what we had learned from almost every round of this project. We created progress by making small adjustments to these new issues that came up. We reset our plan, and we brought in people from new disciplines to support the project. We discussed what our users needed to succeed and how to provide that, now that we actually understood them a bit better. And we looked at how we communicated, both on our site and in Slack. Because people got really excited when we launched this, and seeing the impact it had on our work and on our partners has been really encouraging. To keep finding ways to expand on what's existing and making what's existing more useful. Our team is already eager to build more pages, and this will bring more access and alignment across our brand, which is what we wanted. So we're celebrating this progress, even if the cycle continues. But now we know a little bit more how not to get stuck, whether it's in the process or the project itself. It's easy to focus on what's wrong and lose sight of what's ultimately useful or good. Sometimes you need to put it out there, you need to test it, and you may not know what will happen. You may not like what will happen, but either way, it'll help you figure out your next step.
So these are the stories of how we somehow pulled it off. It was messy, it was complicated, and in the end, though, we made something really useful, something that will never, ever really be done. We want to thank you for being on this journey with us, and we hope that these takeaways will help you tackle your next ambiguous, big or small project, or even just step into a role or something that you've never done before. And because you know, it takes a team. We were so lucky to have a chief money officer of our presentation. Thank you, Viet, for illustrating this emotional journey, contributing to brand guidelines, and of course, thank you all so much.